In 2024, forward-facing sonar has taken over tournament fishing at the local, regional, and professional level. However, because so many anglers are focused on forward-facing sonar, there are a lot of offshore fish that are being left undisturbed because they're hard to see on live sonar. The easiest way to find these bass that live sonar has trouble seeing is using the side scan function on your fish finder. In this video, I want to show you how I found a really nice group of offshore bass with only my side imaging and not forward-facing sonar on a pressured fishery with a lot of other anglers on it. These fish were completely undisturbed by other anglers who were scoping out in the middle, and I was able to put some really nice fish in the boat utilizing traditional side scan technology. Let's get into it.
That is a nice rocky spot. A bunch of bait up on it. Way shallower than I've been graphing today. Not that much shallower, but a good 5 to 10 feet shallower than I've been graphing. Water clarity out here in Lake Hudson today, guys, is about 2.5 feet. So I was thinking I needed to graph out there in the like 15 to 20 foot range. But that little rock pile right there had a bunch of fish on it. You can see a few fish scattered out on the 2D sonar and down imaging as well. And I think that the bait fish and all of these fish are pushed up way shallower than I thought they were going to be today. I'm gonna mark this rock pile. I don't see a ton of necessarily like fish in the rock pile just from that first scan, but they can easily be hiding in there. And there's more rock out here on the tip of this point, all up in that like 8-foot zone. And there's bait there. There's a bunch of shad kicking all over the surface. And one thing I found about these Oklahoma lakes is that the fish will set up a lot shallower than you would expect, all the way up until like July or August. So it's a big mistake at times to graph that 15-20 foot range on these Oklahoma lakes, except for maybe like Grand Lake might be the one exception to that rule. But I'm gonna graph through these rocks because you can see a ton of rock down there, and I'm gonna see if we can see a few fish potentially. I don't see any right off the bat, maybe a couple. I'll try to point them out. There might be a few right in here that could be fish, and there's a few more right there that actually could be fish. It just popped up on the screen. What I might have to do on this deal, guys, so we got some rock here that had some fish on it, and then right over here looked really good with some rock. And what we might have to do is just kind of get in this general area and bomb a few casts around, dragging like a swing head or a crankbait. Probably a swing head would be best because of the calm conditions, not a lot of current, and just kind of fish this point. I'm gonna keep graphing a little bit longer though. This point looks really good, and there's two nice little rocky stretches here, but I want to keep going. There's another little rocky deal a little bit further back up in here, and while I'm doing that, I'm gonna regraph this just really quick. I don't want to jump up and fish this right off the bat because I literally just drove over the top of it. So I want to give it like 10-15 minutes to rest. And so we're going to graph around just a little bit more. But one thing, again, you got to really be careful of when you're fishing offshore is that you're fishing too deep. Fishing in that 20-25 foot zone, because there's a lot of stuff out here. You can see on the down imaging, there's bait everywhere. But on these Oklahoma lakes and these shallow, rocky, kind of muddy lakes, the fish a lot of times will be way shallower than you think, and to the point where they might be even like way up on top of this flats. Like we see these rocks out here on side imaging, and instead of being, for example, right on the tip of these rocks, like out here, a lot of times they're like way up here in this zone up here. And I'm actually gonna mark up there because that's kind of, a lot of times what I find is where those fish are is way up on top of that break. Now there's a bunch of stuff on side scan, a bunch of random fish and trash fish and just stuff that you can see there. Those are not all going to be bass. And really on these type of lakes, because there's so many trash fish, when I say trash fish, I mean like carp, spoonbill, gar, stuff like that, stuff I'm not fishing for. I like to try to just find hard cover that provide a good ambush zone for these bass, rather than worrying so much about seeing the fish. It's nice if you can graph a rock pile and you can see a few fish in the rocks. That's not a bad deal at all. Just to kind of give you a better idea of if there are fish there. I'm gonna switch back over here just so I can see my mapping. And you can see I'm kind of just graphing through, and I'm in this like 6 foot of water zone. And there's a pretty good distance between me and the bank. There's another little high spot coming up on the map, and there's a bunch of random fish scattered all up and down this deal. But what I really want to find again is some type of hard cover, like rock or something these fish can be setting up on, rather than just a straight up group of fish, because 95% of the fish you're going to see on the side scan here are going to be non-bass species, and so we're not going to mess with those. We're just going to be looking for those rocks, maybe some brush if we can find it. I remember there being some rock up here, if I remember correctly. I need to kind of move out a little bit so I don't run over the top of it and get too close, but a lot of times I'll just graph these flatter banks like this, guys, too, even if I don't know stuff is here, because all of a sudden you might, graph down a deal like this, then a rock pile pops up on the right side or left side of the side scan. And so on these Oklahoma lakes, like right there's a little rockier deal. I think it's the thing I was trying to graph earlier, or thinking about graphing. Don't know if there's a bunch of rock or anything on it. It comes up really flat, but I don't see any rock specifically. We're gonna re-graph around that and see if there's any rock that we can see, like it looks like there might be even like a little road bed based on what the mapping is showing. But specifically I wanna find like where the chunkiest rock is. There we go, right on the left side of that side scan. That's what we're looking for. That's kind of a harder break right there, a harder edge. And let's see if we can see any brush out here, maybe some chunkier rock. I'm gonna try to stay right on the edge of that little drop. There is a little culvert or bridge or something down there. That looks really, really good. You can see there's a ton of fish and bait and just stuff around that. I'm gonna keep graphing here for just a second. That has so much going on, guys. It's gonna be hard to kind of parse out all of that, but I like that there's that little choke point there that these fish could be setting up in. And then there's another little kind of depression dip there in that road bed. Looks kind of interesting. So I'm gonna mark that, that culvert right there with like a little culvert icon. And I'm also gonna mark that little deal with this. It's just a little gap in the road. We're gonna look at both of those. And then I think that's it, but I'm gonna go work around this point one more time. I'm gonna really be thorough about this spot, because it looks like there might be another point that sticks out over here. So I wanna check that out. But ideally, on these spots, I'm not going to spend a ton of time fishing each of them when I do end up actually standing up and getting on the front of the boat. I'm really just gonna pull up there and fire a handful of casts, maybe 10, 15 casts on each of these little rocky spots. Work a bait that can move kind of quickly so that I'm not wasting too much time on each spot, because there's so much going on. What I find is that when you get into an area, a little rocky spot or whatever that has fish, you're pretty much gonna get bit immediately. There's a little brush pile right there. Interesting. I marked that just to have that brush pile marked. But yeah, you're gonna get bit pretty much immediately when you get into those zones. And you may not get bit by the biggest fish in the lake. It might be a smaller one, but there's probably more in there if you're getting bit. So just throw into these areas. If you get bit within your first couple of casts, it means there's probably something good going on down there, and it's worth making a few more casts. Here's another rocky spot, as you can see, coming up on. Kind of see it on the mapping a little bit too. See, this is exactly what we're looking for. A little rocky spot. Sticks out here. Don't see like a ton of fish or anything, or just some bait, but it's another little rocky spot. We're going to mark that right in here. So now we have rocky spot number 1, 2, we got like 5 rocky spots, which is pretty good. So we're gonna go through here, and I bet I might only get bit on like 1 or 2 of these. I don't expect to get bit on all of them, but I'm gonna go run all of these rocky spots, and I'm gonna pick up a swing head probably and just fire it on these deals until we get bit. So I'll see you over there when we get to the first spot. Got him. Come on, stay on this time, fish. My 3rd fish on this Magnum Squarebill, guys. Jumped 2 off. Feels like a big one. Just changed out treble hooks on this deal. Striking 8.0. Just jumped off a good one. This is another good one. I got 2 on. Doubled up on the Magnum Squarebill. Stay on there, fish. Guys, just working my way up here, and I saw some shad kicking on the surface. So I wanted to go throw a crankbait over at him, and there we go. That's what I'm talking about, guys. Magnum Squarebill, striking 8.0, 2 fish, 1 cast. I lost fish on the last 2 casts as well. That's crazy, guys. I'm not even scoping. My Livescope doesn't even reach out that far, guys, so I'm not even gonna show you the screen. Fish number 1. Let's get fish number 2. Didn't see these fish, guys, on side imaging even, but I just had a really good feeling about this spot. So let's get back up there because there's so many of them. I just saw a shad kick out there about right where my bait landed just then, and I'm like, man, we throw a crankbait over there, maybe I can get one that's schooling. And there's obviously a lot of fish on this little rocky point. I just can't believe I got 2 that cast and lost 2 more the cast before that. So you gotta change out trebles, guys. I thought those were new trebles. Apparently they weren't, because I felt them and they were dull, and I should have changed after the first fish I lost. But hopefully we can keep this rolling, and it's not the only couple fish we're gonna get off this spot. And that's why those fish are up there, guys. Got a little shell right here, mussel shell mixed in with that rock. Guarantee you that's why those fish are sitting up there. So a little mussel shell mixed in with that rock up there. Hard to tell when you're graphing if that's the case or not, but that's why you just run these rocky spots. And if there's shad kicking around on it and everything, I love throwing this Magnum Squarebill. Otherwise, just throwing that swing head works really well also. Got him. Finally. Got one. Took me a second. I think I'd just move around the rock pile a little bit more, because I had to change my casting angle on him to actually get this fish to bite. Oh golly, don't do that, fish. That was not good. There we go. Big chunky fish right there. They will not touch anything, guys, except for that Magnum Squarebill, striking 8.0. This bait is a beast when you're fishing in like 8 feet of water or less. It's my favorite crankbait. Love that deal. Good fish. I think I relocated him a little bit. I just kind of was working my way up this rock pile, just following my waypoints, guys, not worrying about the Livescope, just trying to figure out a casting angle or something that, oh, and just smacked it right there. That'll get these fish to actually commit. And I probably moved my boat up about 30 yards and cast kind of across this a little bit more than straight on it. And oh, look at that right there. There's more of that shell. They are on that shell. And I'm thinking that these fish are just kind of roaming this deal, chasing bait. And so the first few fish I got, I saw one bust, and that's why I was able to get those really quick. And they probably just moved around this a little bit. And I'm gonna see if I can get a few other baits to work, because I don't know why they wouldn't eat a crank or a jig or like a worm or something as well. But a lot of times these fish in the summertime will roam so much that you have to throw a crankbait on them in a spot like this, because there's so much area for them to be on, and they're just chasing shad. And so you just burn that crankbait by them, and eventually you get it in front of one that's active and get a reaction strike out of them.
Really quick, guys, I've been getting a lot of requests to break down lakes with all the structure spots I would check when I go to the lake. So I've recently added some new structure breakdowns to fishthemoment.com. These breakdowns are focused on 3 different areas of each lake and provide over 100 different structure spots for you to explore. And I break the spots up into community holes, subtle structures, and offshore flats. These are the 3 types of areas I fish, and I explain in the breakdown when you should fish these areas based on fishing pressure, your objective for the day, and a lot of other factors. If you're interested in getting better at offshore fishing and want to find really good structure spots to start graphing when you get to the lake, definitely check out my new structure breakdowns on fishthemoment.com.
Got him. There we go. Good one. Man, just keep having to change angles and burn that crankbait. They want the crankbait. They don't want anything else right now, which is really weird. But I mean, I'll take it because these are freaking good fish, and I'm not complaining. Oh, good one. Freaking tank on the crankbait. Solid, stubby little guy, but solid 3.5 pounder right there. Beautiful fish. That's the size fish we're looking for. Absolutely choking that Magnum Squarebill right there. Let me get some pliers. Oh, there we go, guys. Beautiful fish right there. Get back down in the lake, bud. Whew, that's what I'm talking about. Ooh, got him. Change up that angle one more time. Got a big one, big one. Oh my gosh. Stay on there, fish. This is why we throw the big Magnum Squarebill, guys. Golly. Had to change up. I'm casting literally downwind now. Stay on there, fish. Oh, golly, stay on. Work him around this way. I think we're just gonna have to boat flip this guy. No, maybe not. Yeah, maybe. Just get up in here. Yes. Oh my gosh, guys, that's a freaking tank. Oh my goodness. On that Magnum Squarebill. Big fish, guys. My goodness. Have to change up those casting angles, guys. I talked about it in one of my recent videos, but changing up those angles is absolutely critical when you're fishing here offshore in the summer. I started completely facing into the wind and now I'm casting behind the boat and that triggered that fish. Let's get a weight on that guy. There we go, guys. 4 pounds, 5 ounces, solid fish. That's what we're talking about right there. Solid 4-pounder. Love catching these fish. That's the size of fish we're always looking for out here. Get back down there. Well, there we go, guys. That was awesome. Catching them on that KVD 8.0 Squarebill crankbait. If you haven't picked up one of these, definitely check them out on Tackle Warehouse. I'll leave a link in the description. Use those links in the description, guys. It actually helps me out. I get a small percentage of the profits, so always appreciate if you can use those links. I lost the first 2 fish I had bite today because I had old treble hooks. I've done this now 2 fishing trips in the last month. I need to change out my treble hooks on all crankbaits from now on. I'm gonna make that a rule. And I actually upgraded these to a 1/0 Gamakatsu round bend hook on both of these hooks, and I'm just pairing this with a Denali Lithium 7'10" extra heavy Magnum crankbait rod. It's a moderate action, so it has a little bit of a bend to it, which is good, but it's heavy enough to hold this bigger crankbait where you can actually cast it out there. That nice parabolic bend with a little bit of backbone is what you need for these bigger Squarebills. As far as my line goes, I'm just throwing 20-pound fluorocarbon line with a 6:1 gear ratio Abu Garcia Black Max. You can barely read the writing on this one because it is so old. It's like 6 years old. Doesn't sound the best on every cast, but it's still grinding away for me, working for me. So that was kind of my setup. It was interesting. I couldn't get these fish to bite, like a swing head or a worm. I threw a Nico rig. I threw a fluke on them. They just wanted that crankbait. And sometimes, guys, I find that crankbait is just the bait to generate bites. And when I go fishing, I always have at least 3 different crankbaits tied on. I would say that my #1 and #2 baits of all time are a crankbait and a jig, and it's kind of tied 50-50. This year, the crankbait's actually been dominant, and we hear all the drama about crankbait sales deteriorating and no one can sell crankbaits, all this stuff. Well, maybe that's because guys aren't throwing them, and if that's the case, you guys need to pick them back up because they still catch a ton of fish. We doubled up on a fish today, a couple fish today, and we got a lot of fish in the boat very quickly. Within 30 minutes, got a limit in the boat. So really fun day, guys. Enjoyed catching them on this Squarebill. Hopefully you learned something from this video. If you did, leave a comment down below. We'll see y'all next video.